Well, I've just hit record. How are you doing?
Doing all right, bro. Doing all right.
Are,
So,
are you getting sick of people saying that we're living in unprecedented times?
yeah, what are precedented times? I mean, I'd like to read about precedented times. Definitely not what presidents are saying about precedented times. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting time. It's an involuntary pause caused by nature that is making us think about what we're doing as civilization, how we're, measuring what is our barometer of progress. So far, it's economic growth, and that obviously is unsustainable. So it's making us kind of step back and go, what should be our next barometer? Should it be growth in lifestyle? Should it be growth in happiness? Um, Spending time with family as we have, and looking back, and I mean, the air is clean. It's the cleanest it's been in many years, because all the transportation stopped, or majority of it, I should say, and
Mm.
uh, carbon pollution and all these industries have slowed down and stuff. And it's a shock, but we should be thinking about, okay, this is an incredible opportunity to rethink what progress means as far as civilization. What is really important. Constant economic growth is unsustainable, and this is a perfect example of how a small thing by nature can completely, we are so vulnerable, as human beings on this planet. And a small thing can stop everything just like that. So we need to be smarter in terms of our ecological, future, sustainable future, right?
Well, I even feel that on a smaller scale, it's interesting because people are sort of stopping to realize what services are actually important. Like, supermarket workers, here in New Zealand, who typically are on terrible wages comparatively to everyone else. Suddenly they're the most valuable people out there. And I think people are finally kind of noticing that, and noticing
Yeah.
that the people that are on getting paid a shit ton of money aren't the most important people on the planet, which isn't a surprise, but I think it's just a very practical way of people reassessing that fit in society, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when shit hits the fan, you're gonna want a doctor nearby. You're gonna want,
Yeah.
food nearby. It's the basics that are important, including teachers that get paid less. I mean, better in New
Yeah.
Zealand than the States, but generally, less. But every parent in the world right now is going. There's a funny meme online that's showing, like, some guy in a cowboy hat or baseball cap, making fun of teachers that are protesting for more wages, until this happened. Then they're like, I'll give you whatever money you want, just take my kids, kind of thing. It's really making us focus on the bare essentials. Yeah.
What did you? Because I was talking with my housemates the other day about just talking about the economy, and I feel like in the States, and that's a country that I'll never fully understand, but you seem to have a president who's obsessed with the economy and getting the economy going, at the detriment to every citizen, because he's just, his message has suddenly shifted, and it's, no, we need to open everything up again by Easter arbitrarily. Just an odd thing to do. I'm guessing you said something recently about him that got you in the headlines. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just called him an egocentric, stupid something. But I mean, look, you said he's obsessed about the economy. He's actually obsessed about himself, and the economy is his barometer of his presidency in his mind. So he doesn't want the economy to fail, and obviously, it's going to fail. I mean, all the economy in the world is failing because of this involuntary pause. And so, I think he's realizing, everything that he says, in his press conference, revert back to him and how well that his government's doing, or making fun of the press for, not making fun, but basically beating
Awesome.
down on the press, saying that, they want to replace him, and this is all about his reelection. It's all about him. Same with the Bolsonaro in Brazil. The guy is, he's so dangerous. Guys are so dangerous. And this is another positive, I think, takeaway that we could walk away with from this pause is, is that I think maybe even those hardcore, although I wouldn't hold my breath, but some of these hardcore supporters of these right-wing populist leaders might just look at them and go, how useless are these guys? You know, like they're completely useless. You know, they
Yeah, and
have
they're actually
no
killing us.
yeah, yeah, they're killing us. Like they, you know, like you know, completely useless. Like you look at Jacinda Ardern's speech, you look at Prime Minister of Armenia Nikol Pashinyan's speech, you look at other speeches by formidable leaders around the world, and then you look at these clowns, and
Yeah,
it's like it's
yeah, man.
embarrassing, you know.
Is it
And
weird for you, like is it odd for you because you've got this interesting perspective where you're based in America a lot of the time, you're Armenian, you live in New Zealand a lot of the time, and they're very different. You know, especially between like New Zealand and the States, a very different way of doing things. Has that given you like quite a let you step back from things a little bit in the world and sort of look at things a bit remotely?
absolutely. I think, you know, the time spent in New Zealand has kind of, you know, it's always like that when you walk away from something and look at it from the outside, from another type of perspective, it gives you better perspective. But, you know, I mean, you know, in the US, we live in Los Angeles, in California, which is where you spend your time when you're there as well. And it's not, it's a quite liberal and, you know, it's a big city, obviously, the Big Smoke, but it's quite a liberal place. And you know, we have good people working in the government there, in the state, and all of that stuff. But it's not about that. It's, you know, it's just the common, it's the misperception of what we're doing here. You know, this is why I think this pause is interesting. Obviously, it's painful. You know, there's a lot of people suffering. There's a lot of people getting the virus. There's people dying. There's fear. Fear is a huge motivational factor here. You know, in terms of everything, and I think it's wise to have, you know, for the New Zealand government to have kind of acted early in a way, you know, as soon as it started. I think what we had hit 100 and plus some infection numbers when the lockdown, the stage 4 was decided, the level 4, I should say. In the US right now, the whole country is still not under lockdown. It's just certain cities, like 3 or 4 cities or 5 cities that are under lockdown. There, I looked yesterday, I saw it on Twitter, there's over 4,000 domestic flights that were going on in the US yesterday. 4,000 domestic flights. This is just the disease spreading everywhere. It's like, I mean, what's the point of telling people in Los Angeles you have to stay home if there's all these people flying into Los Angeles from everywhere else? It's kind of zeros. That's why you see the numbers, you know, going up, doubling, and U.S. has the most cases now. Although, you know, not the most deaths, obviously, which is good, but the most cases, and it's spreading like wildfire because they're not containing it. They're not containing it, and you know, Sweden is interesting. They're not even trying. They're just, you know, the prime minister basically said, you know, we've been in the house for 8 months in the winter or 9 months, whatever. Everyone come out, do their thing, but be responsible. You know, they did close venues, they did close clubs and stuff like that, but people aren't, you know, it's not that big thing. And you know, it's quite interesting. I mean, you know, there's people arguing that more people die from the flu and all that, which you know, the regular flu, which is, I get that, and some of this, you know, has it been blown over proportion? Maybe, but the rate of death from this disease is pretty high, and I keep on mentioning that, and I look at the country by country mortality rate percentage. It's quite interesting. Germany has the lowest rate. You know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have one of the lowest rates, and you know, Italy, Spain have some of the highest rates. Now they have huge, you know, overage population, older population. That's part of it, but it's also cultural because people live together. Like in Italy, you have families like 12, 13, 14 people all living together. Grandma and grandpa are always there. Great grandma and grandpa are always there. So they're all infected because of it. And it's really sad because that is a beautiful lifestyle, more so than the kind of everyone to themselves, their own pods kind of lifestyle as humanity's become in the modern age. So it's very sad. It's very sad.
Well, I'm kind of curious here when we come out of this and when we do start returning to what life will look like on the other side of that, whether it's do we go to the cinema, are we shaking hands again, are we actively going to go out in a crowded restaurant in New York and eat together, You know, it's all that life stuff, you know, how much that will shift and how much that will change. I'm kind of curious about all of that stuff as well.
I think, I don't know about everyone else, but I think life will, you know, go on to a certain degree in terms of social exchange. But I think there's never been a time when this has happened, as far as I know. And I think it's going to change us. I think it's going to make us think twice about certain things. Just like I think the terrorism that happened in the US, Europe, elsewhere in the world, it made you think when you go to a venue, a large venue, you know, you kind of look around and you start thinking about stuff. It changed the way that we perceive, especially in large social entanglement, you know, venues. I think this is going to do the same, because first of all, I don't think this is, you know, when they end the lockdowns, it doesn't mean that the virus has disappeared.
No,
you know?
absolutely not. Well, there'll be pockets of outbursts, right? Ongoing.
It will be ongoing. This is going to go for a while. And, you know, but so I don't think, you know, whether it's the economy or whether it's people's perception in terms of entanglement, it's not going to be, it shut down from 60 to 0, but it's not going to go 0 to 60. It's going to take a long time for people to kind of get over this. And we'll never be over it, because it made us realize something, you know, something very kind of primitive, like something very, you know, deep down inside, you know, the fear that from mortality is a big thing, you know, and it made us realize this whole fucking thing is a sham. All of what's happening, you know, all of modern civilization is a fucking sham, because it's unsustainable. And we knew that, but now we felt it. We felt it now. That's the difference. So it's not going to be the same ever again.
No, absolutely. And it is that idea that, yeah, I mean, as humans, we're so used to going along with our routine, and whatever we're born into, we kind of just accept this whole system. And so you're completely right. It's just like this worldwide wake-up call of how we are going to move forward out of this and how we're going to start living differently. It is fucking nuts, man.
It is. It makes you think about stuff that I don't think, you know, in a way that you never have. And, you know, I mean, you know, how many movies can you watch? Like, I haven't seen this movie, and then I'm thinking, shit, I better not watch all the movies, because I still have like 20.
There's only so much like Tiger King that you can watch, right, before it runs out. That's
I haven't seen it yet, but I've got it on my list. Yeah. I saw, what did I see? I saw The Gentleman. I thought that was really cool. Guy Pearce. Did you see that?
I haven't seen it yet. I hear it's like maximum Guy Pearce. He's kind of like just gone double down on everything that he typically does.
Yeah. Except using too many kind of US actors and accents, which obviously bigger actors and stuff like that, but you lose the, you know, Cockney kind of realism to the British film genre. And so that's a small critique of Guy Pearce.
Any other ways to stay sane? What are you actually doing as a human with your family just to keep things sane and level?
A lot of projects with our son, getting him kind of, you know, so that he's not bored, and you know, programs with school and playing outside. We set up a beautiful camping area outside, remote obviously, and so
well, does he understand what's going on? Like, dude, are kids understanding like what the heck is going on in the world? Like, what do they make of this?
He's only 5, so I don't think he's totally he knows that there's this thing called coronavirus. He's mentioned it a few times, and he knows that things have changed because of it, but I don't think he's really processing it. Older kids I've seen, neighbors' kids and stuff, that obviously understand better. I think, you know, they're trying to understand it the best they can. They still have a good outlook. And, you know, you know, it's a scary thing, but, you know, it's not the end of the world. But it is the end of the world that we know, and not because of the virus, but because of us.
Yeah, we got to this point, right? There's a lot of us on this planet, very close together. There's a shit ton of us here.
And the way some, what do you, okay, you've been reading the news, I'm sure, as I do. India, the way that they called the lockdown, just like that, without warning people, closing down the whole infrastructure, railways and buses, like fucking insanity. Like, what are you trying to do? You know, um, it, it's interesting because it's like, if you want to see true leadership, check out an emergency, and this is it. You know,
Yeah.
you see the true leaders. You've got people from Australia on, you
Oh
know,
my
Instagram,
God.
on just
Yeah.
Instagram saying, "Can you please be our leader," you know,
Oh
and
yeah.
stuff
I mean,
like
there's
that.
the whole thing about like you do feel incredibly proud of the leadership here and the way Jacinda has communicated things so clearly, moved relatively quickly on all this thing where it looks like our cases will be plateauing out. You know, the community transmission seems
Mhm.
under control, which is encouraging. Of anywhere to be in the world, Serge, like New Zealand does seem a pretty fucking dope place to be.
For sure, for sure, it is. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm grateful that I get to spend a good part of the year here, and you know, and yeah, it is. And New Zealand has taught me a lot over the years in terms of transparency, political transparency, in terms of, you know, governing, in terms of the way that people interact, in terms of interesting balance of stuff, you know, indigenous to modern. And I've learned a lot. And when Armenia had its revolution in 2018, I was in my mind going, this is a small country like New Zealand. There's no reason why it can't be a first world economy with the right attitude, with the right investment, with the right, you know, transparency and all of it. And I'm happy to say that since the revolution, all of those things have been occurring with the new government there, and I've been involved with that, as you well know.
Okay.
Um, and so, you know, I love seeing that. You know, you see these large countries buckling under complete democratic ignorance, and then you see these small countries really, really punching above their weight, and it's something to be proud of.
And it can happen quickly, right? Change can happen insanely quickly. And like we do adapt quickly to things as well.
We're very adaptive creatures, and you're right. Change happens very quickly. What are you feeling? Tell me some of your thoughts about all of this. I mean, in general, you know, in terms of philosophy of why this happened, where is this going next? I want to hear what you feel.
Oh no, I mean, I think I'm kind of with you on. I mean, one thing it does make you realize how very quickly the things you don't need. I mean, I was very like self-centered, but my spending over the last week has just like plummeted, and I haven't missed spending money on things, and that's just the typical thing of being in an economy, right? Of walking around and like buying a whole lot of imported crap, you know. So it's like suddenly like you just notice like you don't actually need that much to function as a human. You just need other good humans in your life, food and
Yeah,
shelter. You're kind of fine. You know, as someone who, you know, it's interesting seeing everyone in their different, whatever their different lives look like, just come to a halt. So, you know, I was out meant to be filming something at the moment and I can't do that. But like everyone around the world is in a very similar position of what they were doing has just stopped. And I suppose, you know, I suppose it feels like this kind of worldwide halt is kind of a good time to reassess what's important and what to focus on, because we do have a limited amount of time on Earth, and I think it's pretty easy to sort of waste it on some pretty fickle things at times.
agreed. Yeah, absolutely. I think well put. Yeah, it's interesting because when this thing first happened, my mind, I was like, oh man, fuck 2020. We need to, you know, restart this.
Yeah.
But a weekend or 2 weeks in, whatever it's been, like, I don't mean from the lockdown, but just, you know, the whole trauma of it,
Yeah.
number of, you know, I'm like, no, it's not like we need to restart 2020 again or start 2021 again. It's almost like we have to figure this shit out. We have to,
Mm.
you know, we have to have a better end game here. Like, this is not just a mishap or something that needs to be redone. This means that there's a fade out. Like, there's something else that we need to really look at. And I'm just, my fear is not the coronavirus. My fear is that we don't learn the instrumental lessons from what's going on right now and continue as we had, and just completely ignorantly walking into our own unsustainable future.
Well,
That's
that's the
my fear.
debate, right? It's like, when this is over, are people going to take all these lessons they've learned, all these things they've thought about, or are they going to go back to doing exactly what they were doing before? Because we're such fucking terrible creatures of habit, and that's what we always fall back. It's like, I was talking to a friend the other day, and they had this really intense car accident, and they told themselves at the time, like, right, my whole life's changing. I'm never looking at my phone in my car. I'm never doing anything again. My whole life is going to be lived differently. 3 months down the track, that temptation to like look at their phone or they're texting again is like back again. And we're such creatures of habit to going back and repeating exactly the same mistakes again. And
True.
so that's my greatest fear, is when all this is over, we just fucking idiots and just keep living life as we were. I don't know.
Yeah.
Very negative.
I,
The whole thing.
No, I'm with you, and I think you're completely right. I feel like our environment has to change for us to change with it, but then we have to change that environment. It's like a chicken and the egg thing, because if you're in traffic in LA and you're going to get on your phone and look at it while you're in traffic, and I feel like, we have to first change our environment, and then while changing within it, it's like this macro micro thing, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's quite interesting, Man, it smells good outside.
That's where we're going to go. Hey, look, thanks for doing this catch up, by the way. I kind of had this idea of just, whilst we're all locked indoors, zooming with people and kind of quizzing them about where they're at and what they're thinking. I appreciate it. And isn't it funny? We had like these big years lined up of like doing things and projects, and you'd be touring and you've got films and all this stuff, and suddenly we're all just in the same boat of being like, hey, we're all stuck in our house and we can't do anything. It's such a unique, weird fucking place to be.
It is. And yes, I mean, I had Tribeca cancel. We were going to premiere Truth to Power there. I had the theatrical release of I'm Not Alone pushed, and the tour looks like it's going to be pushed. And I had a art exhibit, that I'm pushing.
Oh yeah, you've always got shit on.
When? Huh?
You've always got shit on, more than anyone else I know.
But we don't even know when to push it to. Like, do we do it in August? Everything's gonna, like, who knows? Like, it's.
Yeah, I saw a New Zealand musician posting their rescheduled tour dates for like in June, and I'm like, I think this is a bit soon. I don't think you should be rescheduling just yet. Let's just wait this out a bit.
Yeah. I would, and that's why I think there's not a lot of appetite for people trying to pitch stuff, market stuff, or change stuff, and like I'm noticing that, and it makes sense. Again, it's going back to the basics of what we need, and we should be thankful. Honestly, we're privileged because there's people that can't be at home, not just the essential work of that, but also people that, like the India stuff I was watching on BBC, like a lot of people are having a hard time getting to their villages to be with family. They can't afford to be laid off. They're all laid off at once, all these millions of people. It's happening all around the world, and it's really painful. And obviously governments are utilizing wartime kind of efforts in a way of stabilizing the situation, both in terms of businesses and giving money to people so that they can survive. And someone who's been a Bernie Sanders supporter throughout this whole process, in a country like the US that looks at the word socialism as a cuss word, and yet now Trump's government is writing checks to people and making the tests free, and trying to help businesses survive and all this. These are all socialist aspects. The only problem is they're doing it without much regulation of business. They're giving, this whole stimulus package, this is really interesting, I think, is there's a $2 trillion stimulus package that was just signed into law in the US. And, a good chunk of that is going to major corporations, just like TARP in 2008. The difference is there's very little regulation. They're going to fucking just give it to their, as dividends to their stockholders. And there's because it's your Trump government instead of the Obama government or whatever. I think they're using this. Those that are thieves are going to steal big time during this process. And that's what's happening as well. and saying that this is emergency relief for our people and businesses and stuff. It's done differently here, obviously. I saw what Air New Zealand is taking in terms of, funds and how the government's protecting its, investment in terms of all of that stuff. Very smart, very, should be that way.
Oh yeah, but
anyway,
that anything Donald is doing is for his own benefit. At the end of the day, that's what it all constantly comes down to. I mean, we would say that we're two raging lefties, and I know some people would disagree, but God, it's becoming more and more obvious, isn't it? Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Like, even for his supporters, it's becoming obvious. But then,
you'd hope so. You'd hope so, right? By this point, as people die, but I don't know.
He's going to have to eat a live baby on camera in the Oval Office, I think.
Yeah.
For and with blood coming down, for people to go, oh, maybe he's just not right. Maybe he's just not right.
Yeah, but then his supporters would probably say, oh, that's just doctored footage from the liberal left or something, That's
right.
Anyway. Go outside, Serj, have a walk. It'll be interesting to check in because we've got another 3.5 weeks of being locked inside. It's probably going to be, I imagine it'll be extended. It'll be interesting to see where our brains are at the end of all this.
We'll do it again.
Stay sane.
You too, brother.
See you, bro.
See you later.